Just Michigan in general. Michigan was a bummer.
Nope. I'm just gonna put my foot on the floor and I'm not lifting till I see God or a checkered flag.
Racing with KLAS, back the week after Michigan. Well, let's just get right into it, buddy. Things you loved and hated.
Just Michigan in general. Michigan was a bummer. So I had this trick at Kansas and Charlotte where I go outside 3 wide on the restarts, and it's been serving me very well, and did not serve me well at Michigan. I went outside 3 wide into turn 1 at Michigan, and back started to come around. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna crash, and then I was pretty much got to the back straightaway, and I lost like 5 spots, but I was just happy at that point I didn't crash. So then we go into turn 3, and I didn't want to be out there anymore, but I had positioned myself out there where they were still too wide underneath me, and Charlie called on the radio, top of 3, which we know from Charlotte now does not mean going to the top of 3. It means on the outside of 3 cars, which we learned that at Charlotte the hard way. But so I went in pretty soft, and actually that corner went worse. I really thought I was gonna bite it over there. I was about 45 through the whole corner, and so that's how we started the race, and it was a lot of catch up from there. I knew we had a really good car and race trim. Um, we kind of we were fighting the handling a little bit in practice, and it was free, and in qualifying, I think I was hesitant because I was expecting the car to be free. It wasn't. I knew I left some speed out there. We're only 4 tenths off the pole, so I knew we were gonna have a good car. And as soon as that thing took off, I mean, we were just driving past guys. Just obviously, we lost a bunch of spots, but passing good cars. Got stuck behind the one kid forever. He was doing a heck of a job aero blocking me for 8th, and but that's part of it. That's we're all fighting for a gig next week, so I get that. But he wasn't making my life very easy. We lost a bunch of time trying to get around him, and finally got him, and we got to the halfway break there. I think I want to say I guess I was 6th or 8th because I was on the outside, and the car was still a little free, but we made a couple adjustments, and took off on the start, and I was right behind that Thad Moffitt, and this is like lap 40 restart, and we were kind of we were drafting by the kid that was blocking me, not blocking me, but just not letting me go very easy. Being a little bit of a Ryan Newman, yeah, fiddling me very hard. But we were getting past him, so I was staying in line with Thad Moffitt, and something I've never experienced before. I got so close to Thad Moffitt, and the end of those straightaways, you're going 200 miles an hour. And I went in the corner and I turned, and the car just did this. Like, no, like I thought the steering like knuckle broke for a second because I turned and the car just went straight. And upon reflection, what I realized is I was so close to Thad Moffitt on the downforce cars. We run a big belly pan underneath it, and I think I just packed a ton of air underneath there, and then I think it just lifted the front of the car out of the track for a minute. So I just had negative front downforce in the front. So that was wild. And of course, the kid that I could never pass goes right back by me. So I had to, torture myself again, and then we got back by him, and I still think we were going to be good, man. We were at 7th. We were catching 5th and 6th in a hurry. The car felt a lot better on the second run. It was just a joy to drive that thing. And I noticed the dashboard flickering, which, whatever. Like, if the car's running, I'm just going to, like, what do you do at that point? Like, the dashboard's flickering. So I didn't even call it in, but I was a little worried something was going on, but nothing they can do about it from the pits. We certainly were going to make a pit stop until we needed to. So it was just, kind of just, okay, whatever, faulty parts, I don't know how this stuff works, but so I just, it's fine. And then the car shut off. So, I work on race cars. I'm a half-ass mechanic. So anytime the car shuts off, I start thinking, okay, what's going to shut the car off? You think ignition switch, the kill switch. So I hit the kill switch twice. It didn't do anything. And I won my first modified race. The thing shut off, and I reached underneath the dashboard and jerked a wire, and the car started back up, and I kept going. So that's always what I try now. So I'm underneath the dashboard. I'm playing with wires, and I I bumped into the kill switch wire, and the car turned back on. So I'm like, okay, so we get going again. And I didn't lose. I'd coasted around for a little while. We were doing this, but I didn't lose a ton of time, and we are pretty close to the next break in the pit stops. So still on the lead lap, nurse the car around, get to the break, and see if we can figure it out. Um, then the car shuts off again. So I'm thinking it's the kill switch. So we have a kill switch bypass, but you got to plug and unplug two switches underneath the dash. It's something like you pit and the crew does, but I don't want to lose time. So I'm going down the front straightaway. The car shuts off again. So I jam my knee under the steering wheel and I take both my hands and I'm going down the front straightaway. I'm kind of like looking up, making sure I'm not going to, I don't know, like texting and driving, right? Like, make sure no one's going to cross the road in front of you. But the car was off. So I was like on the apron. I'm like, got my knee in the steering wheel and I'm plugging and plugging. And so I bypass it and boom, the car fires back up. So we drive back on track. And I think at that point we'd lost a lap, but I was in the lucky dog spot. So they're like, keep going, four laps to the break, 4 laps to the break. And then it shut off again. And, at that point, I'm like, okay, I just, I played with fire enough. So we came down pit road. And by that point, that's about when the brake came out. And it turned out to be nothing that I was working on. It was just, circumstantial that I happened to jiggle stuff. And that's when the car would shut back on because it was actually a loose wire down at the alternator. The alternator stud had melted. Very, very expensive spec part that is known to be a little bit faulty. So um, nothing we could really do too much about that. Didn't expect it at a track like Michigan where, you're not running a bunch of fans or anything, but um, they got it fixed. I think we lost probably 5 laps and we went back on the track. We didn't put new tires on and we were still turning decent lap times. So I think, you know, the, I think it would have been hard to get into the top 3 cars, but I know I could see we were catching fifth. That I think we were going to be in the top 5. And um, a couple years ago there, they had a restart where they all got bottled up, and I shot to the bottom and passed everybody, took the lead, moved up, and got into what I call the fast air, and that's when you got a fast car in front of you and a fast car behind you, and they kind of tow you around the racetrack. And I held Jesse Love off for like 15 laps in second, just staying in that fast air. So it'd have been interesting if I could have got to fifth before that last stage break, and maybe we were doing really good on restarts, so maybe could have got up in line there and maybe slotted in fourth and got a tow from some of them faster cars, and then you never know. So coulda, woulda, shoulda. We probably it's been sort of a up and down year with little issues like that, but it's we had the power steering deal over at Phoenix, and we had the alternator wire deal over here. And if you take away those 2 problems, we certainly aren't out of the top 10 in any of these races. Those are only 2 finishes outside of the top 10. And I think Phoenix, we were definitely, we were getting better in Phoenix. I think we would have been in the top 10 with a chance for a top 5. I think at Michigan, we definitely would have been top 5. I think I was done, playing out in the marbles in turn 1 on these restarts. I was going to figure it out finally on the next one. I think we were going to be in good shape there, but, coulda, woulda, shoulda. Like I say, you're kind of at the mercy of the parts that they give you to work with. They're spec parts, and, sometimes they hold up, sometimes they don't. And, you see guys have trouble with some of this stuff once in a while. And, I guess this week was just our once in a while. So, hate it for the guys. It's definitely a bummer, but, we get through this 5 race stretch here with Rockingham, Talladega, Kansas, Charlotte, and Michigan, and other than a little practice jingle over at Rockingham, we really did a good job keeping the fenders on it. We were top 10 in what we were top 10 in 4 of them, top 5 in 3 of them. And even with the issue we had, we were able to stay on track and log laps, and it wasn't a DNF. So proud of that effort for sure. So um, we didn't hand anybody and the guys at class too much work to do as far as extra work, and we're not asking Kevin to buy too many extra body panels right now, so I'm sure he appreciates that. And um, we're talking about adding races, and when we're working on adding races, and I just actually made a sponsorship proposal for Dover and Iowa. So, we're talking about adding races, and that's because we're doing a good job and we're keeping the fenders on it. And um, I also want to point out that we are adding 2 races to the end of the season through our sponsorship campaigns that we come up with. We are gonna go to, Kansas with, the help of, with Phillips 66 is gonna be on the hood, and, new company Ranch Fuel is gonna come on board with us. They're an energy drink company, and, we're gonna go to Bristol. We're working on securing a couple of secondary sponsors, but, Todd and Jody of Florida Safety Systems are tried and true on the TV panel. They said, "What would it take?" And they're going on the hood for this one, and we're gonna go to Bristol with them. So really, really excited about that. And then stepping up and having a lot of love and faith for me to and that it's worth it to see me get out there, and they asked what it would take, and they're going to step up and do that. So that's really exciting, and that it puts us in a good position because now we have some room on the car still for Bristol, but for the most part, we're going to uh Watkins Glen, with the help of Latina Boulevards and Wheeling. We're going to Watkins Glen, Bristol, and Kansas pretty solid. So we are in this position now where we're looking to add either a Dover or an Iowa. We're chasing new sponsors, new partners. And short of that, we're really probably kind of geared up towards 2026. We made a little stab at trying to do the whole thing this year, but obviously we didn't get there with funding. So um, I think right now we're all thinking about how good we ran this year, and positioning ourselves better financially, and with equipment in the shop and everything to be able to make a run at 20, and see where the cards fall. I think the position we got into this year is we were probably not really planning on doing the full 20, but we ran so damn good. It kind of became a talking point, and I think going into next year, I think, obviously if we find the funding, we're going to go, but I think it'd be, work on getting more races funded, get a little bit deeper. So we're not trying to cover 12 races if we are running good. Just positioning ourselves in a stronger position. I feel like all of our sponsors that we do have are satisfied and happy, and they're going to keep helping us. So it's really just a matter of, kind of adding races to our palette at this point.
Shout out to Ranch Fuel. I've actually had this energy drink. It is delicious, and I am a caffeine addict, so I love coffee and energy drinks. Uh, and we'll just like shout Ranch Fuel. Shout out, thank you. Agave lime, blueberry pomegranate, orange cream, mango twist, blackberry lemonade, and kiwi watermelon. You can go to their website ranchfuel.com and get a variety pack for 24.68 with free shipping. That's cheap, bro. That's wow. 3 6 you can get 12 for $25 with free shipping. That's pretty dang good deal.
I think I'm gonna have to get a pack myself, and then get off this coffee stuff here on the podcast, and then we'll get on some ranch fuel.
We definitely will get on some ranch. I'm an orange cream guy, so that's a great. Well, you weren't the only one that had some issues at Michigan. Let's get into some trending cup stuff that only you can provide some context for. Uh Carson Hocevar, not a popular driver right now, and especially maybe with the number 47 car with Ricky Stenhouse Jr. Now, before we talk about what, from a driver's perspective, what is it Carson Hocevar keeps doing that is pissing off drivers? According to the latest reports, as of recording, Ricky and he had some conversations, and he says that he smoothed everything out. Josh Berry from one of your favorite teams, the Wood Brothers team, said might finally see the number 77 get punched after that. Uh Is this just a young driver that's kind of just driving, aggressive, or is getting a reputation, or is this one of those where there's smoke, there's fire thing?
Well, let's touch real quick on Josh Berry first because he had a statement where he picked on Arca, so we don't like Josh Berry right now. We don't really care. Um, so man, I don't know. I wanna feel like I do watch Carson Hocevar, and it does seem like he makes a lot of trouble when it doesn't really seem like it's smart to be making trouble, putting guys for 14th and 15th in the middle of the race and making a lot of enemies without a lot of gain. I mean, if one lap to go at Bristol and you're in second, and it might be worth it to have an enemy at that point, but with 300 laps to go at Martinsville and you're 24th, that might not be worth it. So, um, he's obviously ruffling some feathers. I think we've seen guys come along and do that, and it used to kind of rub me the wrong way, but I sat and I watched the Coke 600. I was actually there at the World 600, and um, obviously, he's been running up front the last couple races too. It was obviously this week at Michigan and wherever they were before that. I mean, he's backing it up. You watch a lot of these guys that make the jump from Xfinity, um, you know, that just are so successful and they get into these good rides in Cup. And, I'm sure it's incredibly difficult. I'm not here to pick on anybody, but you do tend to see guys that don't really make the transition, that have some difficulty, that struggle. And
Well,
um
especially that quickly, 'cause right I mean, right out the gate, he was competitive,
yeah.
and
Well, I think you gotta, when you look at guys that can win regularly at the Xfinity level that get into really good cup cars and they haven't found victory lane yet. And you can name a couple without picking on guys, but I've never driven a cup car. So but what I can imagine is it's probably a very different beast. It's probably very difficult. And you see guys on the same team, you think, with similar cars that run very different every week. So I think there is a driver aspect to this car, and it doesn't seem like there's a ton of guys that can do it.
right.
You know what I mean? Because you see the same guys kind of rise to the top at these cup races. You're talking about the same 10 guys usually. There's not a
Yeah,
lot of guys that apparently can do this. And Carson Hocevar is very much proving himself to be one of the guys that can do this. So I think if you become one of those guys that's a desirable driver to have in your car, you probably earned yourself, quite a bit of leeway with stuff like this. So if he
yeah.
wants to go ruffle feathers, you know, I guess the sport needs that a little bit in some ways, but you see him driving the Dale truck and he does his little sim racing live sessions, and there's a lot of Earnhardt references or shirts and car. So it's not hard to tell who his hero is. And
Yeah, he may
and
not have
then
been the only one that watched the Earnhardt documentary before race.
well, it probably started before that, but you know, there was once upon a time where Dale Earnhardt was not Dale Earnhardt, where Dale Earnhardt was an obnoxious,
That's a
guy
good
in
point.
ragtag jeans that didn't really comb his hair, that looked a little rough, that could go like hell in a race car, but he bounced off a lot of shit too. So, um, I don't know if he's trying to be that or if it's, I don't really know. And no one's ever going to be Dale Earnhardt. I don't care what he does. It just doesn't matter. It just he wins 7 championships. It doesn't, don't ever be Dale Earnhardt. But it's interesting because you gotta take a step back and think about it. And um, I guess time will tell, because you're gonna go down one way or the other, right? You're gonna go down as a kid that got to be here for a little bit and maybe kind of drove like a punk, and that's what you'll be remembered, or you'll be the guy that matured and grew up and learned how to race and went out and won a bunch of championships. And we'll always remember those first couple of years where he was a little bit hard-headed. Figured it out. And I don't know, it's hard to say, but watching what's going on, some of the stuff, where he's getting into guys, in the like points of the race where I'd be pissed. like running 15th at Martinsville, trying to get to the next, get to the end of this race and, working on, it just ruins your whole day. So much goes into these races and just being at the ARCA level. Like like Phoenix and Michigan, they just suck so bad because so much goes into it. Like you go to the short track and your car breaks and you go, oh shit, that sucks. And you could load it up and you drink a beer and you go back next week. You know, Y- when I go to these ARCA races and the alternator breaks, there's a we got 50 disappointed people on pit road. We get disappointed, not like disappointed, like, like end of the world, but like, everyone wants to see the car run good. So, magnify that times 10 with the Cup Series at least. And, you got your guy out there running 15th and, you got some punk driving into his left rear with 250 laps to go and it bends the truck arm or whatever, the tie rods and whatever they got in those things. And, it ends the whole day. So, yeah, no, I'd be frustrated. And I think that probably at some point he's gonna have to, you know, not do that if he's gonna want to survive at this deal because I'm sure, people are gonna get pissed off and start giving it back to him. And, he probably don't want to have his day ruined.
Well, and I think NASCAR fans probably got a little excited that it happened to Ricky Stenhouse because they're kinda thinking, "Well, Ricky's that one guy on the pit, and they're not there or on the track, and there are not very many of them that actually if he says he's gonna punch you in the mouth, there's a chance he may show up at your trailer and punch you in the mouth."
Yeah, he's done that. He's probably another guy that you could make an argument for being a common denominator too, but I don't know.
Well, and I will say this, and then we'll move on, but Carson is equal opportunity. So it's not like he's picking on certain drivers or certain teams. He has been equal opportunity. You can catch it. So it's not he's not
I
picking out teams here.
You know what? The more he keeps running in the top three towards the end of these races, the more everyone's gonna forget to talk about that other shit. So um
Yeah. Well, speaking of
he's
a
back he's backing it up.
yes.
I think it's so much different. I think the conversation is different now than it was a month ago. Because he
That's
is backing it the fuck up. He is out there like legitimately like, okay, he's one of the three guys that I think is gonna win this race with 100 laps to go. But he's done it 2, 3 times now. I mean, that's backing it up, you know?
yeah.
So it's interesting.
Well, and speaking of a guy that people love to hate, Denny Hamlin,
I
once
love Denny
again,
Hamlin.
that guy, and I when they shoved the mic in his face, I just like, "Come on, Denny, give us a line, give me one." And looked at the crowd and said, "I just beat your favorite driver." And she said, "Which one?" And he said, "All of them." And I was like, "This is the Denny Hamlin we all love." I
Did
don't
you
he's
see
been
he
so
did a
consistent.
did you see he also did the Ohio State Buckeyes salute or something? I don't know what it is, but he did like there's like a thing that the Buckeyes do. I
Yeah,
couldn't remember because I don't know it, but like it was pointed out to me they did because he get back in his car and he did there's something the Buckeyes fans do. And obviously Michigan, we could spend an hour just talking about that rivalry and everything behind it. Um, but yeah, just trolling, you know.
he's the
I
best
love
at it.
it. Oh,
He's
he's a total. I don't think he's got a try very hard. I think he's probably a douche.
he's
Um,
just being
he's my
himself.
favorite, by the way. Like he's the guy I'm pulling for. I was stoked about it. Um, he's probably very full of himself. Very, 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 very full of himself. Um, and maybe deservingly so. I mean, look what the guy's doing, right? So, um, yeah, no, he's definitely he's got the right attitude for it. I don't think it's a big reach, so it's kind of fun to watch. But I mean, dude's 44,
Yeah.
gets in that car, he's saving fuel. He knows how to do the air, play with the air, and dude gets it done. But I love the story. I want to see him get that championship.
So
It's Yeah, it's it because I pulled for Mark Martin so hard towards the end, and obviously, he's fucked it when Mark was winning them races. He's 10 years older than Denny was now, which is crazy. But um, it'd be interesting to see him, accomplish the goal at the end because he is deserving of it. He's been, I don't know, I could take away two of Joe, and I won't because he's a 3-time champion. That's fine, and this is the point system, and they played the point system, and that's fine. I don't want to have this debate because we did this all last year, but you can make an argument that, like, two of Joey Logano's years, he probably wasn't the dominant car, and I don't know that there was a year that Denny was, but it's such a shakeup with the Chase deal. I think it could go either way, and for whatever reason, it just hasn't fallen Denny's way on the right day. So,
Well, the more he
being a Buffalo Bills fan, I guess we sort of sympathize a little bit. We want to
yeah,
see him get over the hill.
and the more he talks, the more I get the, like, he and Jordan thing. I'm like,
Mhm.
these 2 guys are wired exactly the same. They
Mhm.
believe they are the best whenever they do whatever they're doing, and they also wanna make sure that you know that they know that you know that they're the best. So
The real reason I started liking him, because um I'm a vegetarian and I'm an animal lover, and he won the New Hampshire race, and he like said he was going to set the lobster free instead of eat it. So that was like, okay, you're my dude. Free the lobster. That's it.
that's it, that's all it
That's
takes.
how easily I'm won over these days in NASCAR, because there's not a lot of good reasons to fall in love with most of these guys.
That's true.
But
Le
he's a short track guy. He came up with the late models, Virginia short tracks. Um,
he's your guy,
no,
like
he's a race car driver. He started out in the late models. He wasn't a teenage prodigy. He won his races and he got his shot, and dude gets it done. You know.
and he's a lot of fun on the I told somebody, I was talking to one of the guys on from one of the other sports shows, and I said, "If I ever get to introduce myself and I say, I'm a big fan, I hope his response is, 'I'm sure,' or like, 'Oh, I know.'" Like, I want him to be everything that I think he is because I'll
Oh,
just
I think he knows everyone hates him. I don't know.
and it
Everyone hates
doesn't
everybody though. Like, who do you like out there? I mean, you got Chase. Like, who's popular anymore?
I don't know.
I don't
Uh,
even know either. Ross Chastain, honestly.
there you
It's
go.
funny because you could have the same conversation about Carson Hocevar now as you did Ross Chastain 3 years ago. And, when
But one of those is a marketing thing, Andy. One of them is he's a watermelon farmer, he's got a big smile, he you know
well, he had the Hail Melon too, which probably changed his life. But, but I mean, he played that role very well.
Yep,
And, in the end, when you go over to the souvenir trailers at these NASCAR races, there's not a lot of guys that have their own trailer, and he's one of them. There's maybe a handful of them, and he's one of them. So,
yep. Last thing, Brad Keselowski compared the NASCAR rule book to an IRS tax code. Has it just gotten too complicated on as far as the rule book goes?
you know, probably. Obviously, what we're dealing with on the ARCA side is more lenient, is probably by a wide margin. But yeah, I think about little tricks that we have with the ARCA car, and obviously they're all perfectly legal. But when they threw Denny Hamlin out for having a piece of vinyl underneath his wrap at Pocono, and I think about some of the things that other teams that aren't us, with the ARCA thing are playing with. It seemed like, oh my God, that's such a tiny little thing to be worried about. A little piece of vinyl wrap underneath the vinyl wrap is just wild to me. That was worthy of a full disqualification from the event. So considering, they threw the hammer down on that being severe, I can't imagine what unsevere. I mean, that is so yeah, I'm sure it's wild, but they everything that's we this podcast goes into this like good old days, and it was better back in the day, without all these engineers and all this shit. Like, we have done it to ourselves because we these teams hire 10 engineers and they sit there and they just freaking I don't even know the word for it. The shit that they just sit there and just tinker with and play with and try to find these little advantages in, and like, it makes a difference. So if you're not doing it, then you got to start doing it. So they done it to themselves by,
Yeah.
having to push these boundaries because the only way that you can control it is to just completely over police it. Otherwise, they're going to push to the boundary. No matter what the boundary is, they're going to push to the boundary. So if you back the boundary up, then the cars are just going to become slightly more illegal. It's not that guys are going to go, oh, well, no, if you don't check it real hard, we'll just finger fuck it a little bit. We're not going to go all out. They're going to they're going to push it until you tell them to stop, no matter what it is. So what is NASCAR to do in that situation? When you're working against 10 engineers, you got to have 10 engineers writing your rule books. And I imagine it probably looks like a fucking IRS tax code. So,
Well, it's a sport that has 2 quotes. Rubbing is racing, and if you ain't cheating, you ain't racing. Like,
wow.
it is built into the sport that from the beginning, the propensity to cheat.
Yeah, I don't know. Again, we just love picking on the way they do things now, but the way these cars are being so aero dependent and low horsepower, you make such an advantage with a small gain because, when you're working against, the air more than the engine, you make these small little gains and it makes a big difference. Like if we had a boxy car that had 900 horsepower, the small little gains wouldn't make as much of a difference because, if the driver can't control the wheel spin for 50 laps, then, he's going to run out of tires more than, the extra sticker on the nose is going to help him with his damn
Right.
downforce, but so I think there is an argument to be made that these cars are so reliant on downforce, and aero gains just to overcome the fact that that's how they're getting around the racetrack. If they change the rules to make it a less aero dependent car. And I think a lot of people are saying that, like you hear like the Mark Martins of the world and smart people say these things. But um, I think the biggest problem is I think the cars would be a lot harder to drive, and I think it'd be harder to find the correct driver for it, and the correct driver might not be able to bring enough money, so they need to make it drivable for the guys that can afford to do it, unfortunately, and I think that's the box that they're kind of stuck in. So,
Hey, we made it. We made our bed.
well,
Now we have to lie in it,
well,
unfortunately. But
I'm ready for 900 horsepower. Let's go. Sign me up. I don't
uh,
know. I don't know about everyone else out there, but I think that's I think me, Andy Seiss, and Mike Dayton would be doing just fine with that. Yeah,
yeah, I
but
think you guys would I
uh,
don't think anybody
yeah,
would
we don't write the rule
complain.
books.
There you go. All right. A lot of things we'll be talking about next week. We may have a guest on the show. I'd love to see if Uncle Kevin's got time, maybe doing a part 2 of what we do with Kevin. Maybe try to reach out to Uncle Kevin, see if he can come on, do a little recap on where we're at for the season. And shout out to all the new sponsors. Still looking for sponsors. So if you're watching and you like, hey, I'd like to see my logo on a car, it's really cool. And plus it would help us out. So come on
Yeah,
over.
no, big shout out to Florida Safety Systems for stepping up. Bill Carter Automotive Consultants is also chipping in a little bit more than he said he was going to, and Yukon Creek Sportsman Club. They've been rock solid with us the whole way. But we're I want to emphasize we're trying to add races to our deal. We are still like over the top, like appreciative of all the people that we have because the people
Absolutely.
that we have gotten us here. Wheelan, Dax, Phillips 66, Acacia Energy. I mean, we just have such a great group of sponsors that are making this happen for us, and we don't want to. Well, we talk about trying to add races. We don't want to take away the spotlight from how awesome these partnerships are and how lucky we are to have them. So, just if we don't add another race, you know, no one's going to be disappointed. We always got to try, but we it's really special racing with the you know, group that we have, and
Hey,
and Kevin, I mean, he's so committed to the whole deal. So, it's just it's a really good group, and hopefully we can go a couple more, but if not, we're gonna go like hell in our last 3 races, and I think everyone saw how fast that super speedway car was last, at Talladega. So we'll start thinking about Daytona.